Hello and welcome to Business at Breakfast in the afternoon. None of us could have imagined how the world would change since March. The day before we had planned to introduce the next phase of GLI strategic plan, the pandemic required us to pivot, changing the way we work, the way we do business, the way we teach our children. Life as we knew it immediately changed, perhaps in some ways forever. But this unexpected event has also presented us with an opportunity, like the opportunity we have today to bring this event to you virtually and get to more members of the community. While we can't wait for the time that we're able to all be together again in person, we're pleased to share these important updates. And now, socially distanced and joining me in person are Lonnie Beller, COO of LG&E and the chair of GLI, and Rachel Friend, founder of Right Angle, an instrumental facilitator throughout the strategic planning process. The chairs of the alignment teams that helped with the development of this plan will be joining us virtually, and we are utilizing the technology that we have all come to rely on during this time to connect us for our discussion. We want this to be interactive, so during the panel discussion, support the alignment team chairs in the plan of work they've developed since March. When you hear something you're excited about, put that in the chat. Tell them you appreciate their leadership. I would like to thank our sponsors for this event. LG&E KU is our presenting sponsor, and I would also like to thank our bronze sponsor, Mightily and Action Coach of Louisville. And to our many table sponsors who are now joining us from their dining room tables rather than a ballroom, thank you as well. Without this critical support from our investors, our work would not be possible. The work we do and the path that lies ahead is the direct result of our sponsors and our investors like you who understand the importance of growing our regional economy and who believe in GLI as the organization to lead. When I assumed the role of president and CEO, my top priority was fully developing a plan that would motivate and empower the business community to participate in a larger vision for the community. Today, you'll hear about the specific actions that GLI will take as a result of the plan. This plan we're going to share is a long-term initiative toward a more disciplined sense of collaboration, a stronger sense of purpose, and an overall understanding of urgency. The four most inspired words ever are, "We can do this." I truly believe that together we can do this. We will do this. We must do this. Powered by a better today and inspired by a richer tomorrow, GLI must be a catalyst for change, making Greater Louisville a place for the intrepid, the bold, the creative, and the industrious. Can we do this? Yes, we can do this. We will do it. We must do it. I'm convinced that we live in the best region in the world, and now is the time for us to mobilize as a business community. Now is the time for us to work together to create a better, more vibrant, more innovative economic future for all people and for our region. The time for change is now, and that's why we've decided to name the plan Now Louisville. Now, to grow Greater Louisville. Now, the time for real change. Although many in the region have experienced improvements in quality of life and economic outcomes over the past quarter of a century, the rising tide has not lifted all boats. Moreover, competition has accelerated and new challenges have emerged. You will hear more shortly on the strategies we've arrived at to change this dynamic and the specific action steps GLI will take within these strategies. Our alignment team leaders will share their insights. These very talented individuals were chosen because they're connected connectors who bring others with them. They're catalysts for change and key members of this movement toward broader prosperity. And make no mistake, we need a movement. We need everyone engaged, supporting, and lending expertise. Now at this time, I'd like to invite my friend and current GLI chair, Lonnie Beller of LG&E, to share some of the work that's already been done. Lonnie is the COO of LG&E, our presenting sponsor for Business at Breakfast, the current GLI board chair, and the chair of the GLI Strategic Planning Committee. Here is a man with many hats. Lonnie?
Thanks, Sarah. LG&E and KU have been longtime sponsors of GLI events such as this, and we're really proud that we can continue to make those connections with the community in that way. LG&E and KU serve about 45% of the population in Kentucky, And many components of this strategic plan that we're going to review today are of great interest to us. And they're of great interest to us because they support the customers that we serve. And customer satisfaction is very important to us. We recently won the #1 position in the J.D. Power Residential Customer Satisfaction Survey. And we're very proud of that and how we can connect with our customers. Economic development is part of this plan, also very important to us. LG&E and KU were recently named one of the top 20 utilities in the nation by Site Selection Magazine in terms of economic development activity, and that's the 8th time since 2010 that we've received that recognition. And then lastly, diversity in our supply chain is a priority for LG&E and KU. We proactively provide opportunities for diverse businesses by mentoring, building relationships with, and buying from companies with diverse backgrounds. In 2019, LG&E spent $170 million with 144 different companies with diverse ownership. And in the last 10 years, you go back, we've spent $1.3 billion with Black, minority, and veteran-owned businesses. So all those things are important to us as a company. And as Sarah mentioned, in addition to being the presenting sponsor here today for this series, I'm here in another official capacity. Last year, I had the honor of serving as the chair of the strategic planning process, and now, as board chair, I get to help carry out that process that we planned. I feel that the vision GLI is embarking upon will transform our community. It's an important, and I can't stress it enough, a lot of people have done great work in our community, but the state of our economy is at a pivotal moment, and we must do more. Last summer, GLI secured a grant from the Economic Development Administration to address the need for more growth. Throughout 2019, GLI worked with Techonomy Partners, a global leader in research, analysis, and strategic planning for economic development organizations, to coordinate the development of a data-driven and prescriptive economic roadmap for our region. Techonomy met with nearly 300 businesses, academic, and civic leaders, many of whom are with us today, and they wanted to gain an understanding of the greater Louisville region's ecosystem. Combined with quantitative data around economic conditions, a 200-page in-depth report was developed along with a condensed executive summary. Highly involved with the development of this report was a 120-member guiding committee and a 12-member working group. Findings from the Techonomy report were drilled down to 6 high-level strategies that GLI announced at the annual meeting earlier this year. GLI then created alignment teams to spearhead each of these areas of focus and identified the specific tactics and actions GLI will take to implement these strategies. Each of these alignment teams met virtually over the following months. And more than 400 members of our community were able to actively participate, sharing their experiences, expertise, and voice in this process. With their support, we have developed strategies that will create a powerful, innovation-fueled engine for long-term economic growth and shared prosperity. We have a panel that will go into more detail on each of the 6 strategies momentarily, driven by the alignment team leaders. First, we want to give you a high-level overview of what success would look like for each initiative. For our region to achieve economic prosperity and grow, we must invest in ourselves and continue to reinvest. As I outlined earlier, Techonomy and our corporate partners have helped us identify 6 pillars that will lead us to real growth. The first of those pillars is innovation. We must create a stronger environment for R&D by fostering higher education and industry engagement. Success in this area would mean increased collaboration and patent growth to brand Greater Louisville as a hub of innovation. This is necessary because as more emphasis is placed on emerging technologies, it's critical for Greater Louisville not to just be leading the conversation, but innovating and creating the work and workforce of the future. This work was led by Alice Houston, the owner and founder of HGI Supply Chain Solutions, and serves as the co-chair of the Innovation Alignment Team, along with Dr. Neely Benaputi, president of the University of Louisville. Second, Louisville must offer full cycle support for startups from every walk of life. Success in this area would mean increased collaboration between startups and local companies, increased capital, and a more robust wraparound services to increase the number and quality of startups in the greater Louisville area. This is necessary because having a startup scene is a critical component of attracting businesses, driving innovation, and attracting talent. For Greater Louisville to grow and flourish, entrepreneurs must see our region as the most desirable place to start and grow their businesses. This work was led by CEO and co-founder of Edge Analytics, Sean O'Leary, and the chair for the Startup Alignment Team. Third, we must focus on economic development on the industry clusters that provide the greatest opportunity for growth in our region. Success in this area would mean job growth, increased business attraction and expansion, network growth, and an identifiable regional brand. This is necessary. If business attraction and expansion are not increasing, communities will wither. To ensure that Greater Louisville grows, we must create an easily identifiable brand, market our region to target businesses for relocation, and expand our networks to ensure the needed resources to support business attraction and expansion. Make sure those resources are present. Serving as the co-chair for the Clusters Alignment Team is Teresa Canaday from the Litigation Department. She's the chair of that department from Frost Brown Todd, along with Steve Galt, and Steve is the president of the Stephen C. Galt Company. Fourth, we must develop and retain talent. Success in this initiative would mean attracting and retaining top talent, creating pathways and pipelines for talent to connect to jobs, and developing support services inclusive of all workers and employers. This is necessary because talent is a key driver of economic growth. To attract and retain businesses, talent must be plentiful and skill sets must be matched to what industry requires. Providing resources, employers need to attract and retain talent, and educating employees on ways to reskill or upskill will ensure Greater Louisville has the workforce to be a leader in the innovation economy. This work was led by the Talent Alignment Team co-chair, Steve Cananan, the CEO of the American Red Cross for the Louisville chapter, and his co-chair, Nathan Shanks, insurance advisor for Logan Laval Hunt, and he's the current WIPAL president. Fifth, inclusion. We intentionally support the success of minority enterprises and talent. We must do that. Success in this initiative would mean equal opportunity for underrepresented groups, representation and inclusion at all levels within business organizations, and increased profitability of minority and marginalized owned businesses. This is necessary because for a community to thrive, there must be equal opportunity and equal representation for all people. If Greater Louisville is going to grow, we must take a leadership role and show the nation that we're committed to inclusion in all facets of the business life here in Louisville. Conrad Daniels, president of HGI Supply Chain Solutions, is our chair for the Inclusion and Minority Business Support Alignment Team. And the sixth, connectivity and mobility. It is imperative that we all work together collaboratively as we undertake major initiatives. Collaboration and open communication will prevent duplication of resources and ensure we move forward cohesively. Equally, it is vitally important that we invest in mobility solutions to better connect neighborhoods and strengthen our transportation network. Success in this area would mean narrowing or ending the digital divide and creating a more connected community through legislation, transportation, and infrastructure. This is necessary because to be a 21st century region, it is critical that we are a connected community. Businesses require expanded airlift and bi-state policy, and talent requires ease of transportation and digital equity. Last but not least is Carrie Stimler, President and CEO of KM Stimler Company and our alignment team co-chair for connectivity, along with Nick DeAndrea, who is the Vice President of State Government Affairs at UPS. Gabby Bruno, the Director of U.S. State and Local Government Affairs for Ford Motor Company, will be representing the Connectivity and Mobility Alignment team today, along with Carrie, I think, is going to join us also. For Greater Louisville to be a prosperous region, we must invest in initiatives supporting these 6 pillars. This will ultimately lead to growth, and as we become a more prosperous region with continued reinvestment, we will see continued growth and continued prosperity. And once again, I know I mentioned all the chairs of each of these initiatives earlier, but I want to take a minute to thank them for all the work that they did to help us identify the key actions that we need to focus on and place our efforts there to gain that regional economic prosperity. Now, how are we going to accomplish all this important work? As you just heard, there's a lot to accomplish, but we are confident, as Sarah said, we can do this with your support. We need you and your company to actively join us in this commitment. It's going to take a combination of funding and volunteer engagement to realize this work. The lofty fundraising goal of $3.5 million will take each of us to support, but I think we can all agree this is necessary work for our community, and now is the time. And with your engagement, encouragement, and financial support, we can execute this plan that will build a stronger, more inclusive, and prosperous Greater Louisville for all. And we're excited to announce that fundraising is already off to a great start. We'd like to take this time to thank Thornton's for their recent contribution of $250,000 to our efforts as the initial lead investor for the Inclusion Initiative. We'd also like to thank Humana, Yum Brands, and Brown-Forman, all of whom are Business Council to End Racism lead investors. And thanks to these companies and their leaders for stepping out to make lasting change. So in the coming weeks, please be on the lookout for outreach from GLI and their team and accept their invitation to help with implementation. Now it is time, and we look forward to having your support. We thank everyone in attendance for their willingness to continue this work with our new virtual connections in that world. So our discussion today will focus on each of the strategies along with conversation around specific actions and outcomes developed which are all ready to be implemented. We are honored to have the chairs and co-chairs from each of the alignment teams with us to discuss the importance of these initiatives and how combined they will help the Greater Louisville region prosper. We chose these important business leaders not only because they are connected to the work, but because they are each passionate about the results. The panelists will all be joining us from various parts of the country, so we're lucky to be able to bring them all here to you today virtually. Up next, I'd like to welcome our moderator for today's panel, founding partner of Right Angle, Rachel Friend.
Thanks so much, Lonnie, and congratulations to both you and Sarah for leading this extraordinary work. I've been privileged to work with you and the amazing chairs for the last year and have seen the plan come together from data to now strong metrics, which will move our community forward. I'm so excited to be a part of this process. So let's dive into the discussion with our chairs for today. As Lonnie mentioned, we have representatives for each of the pillars just discussed on the call. With that, I'll welcome the Now Louisville Strategy Alignment chairs to our discussion. And so what I'll do to those alignment chairs is I'll be asking you each specific questions and which time you can share out your responses. And so Ms. Alice, I'm going to start with you, and I would love to give you a chance to provide an overview of the initiative and then maybe a few words on why Techonomy and the planning team found it to be critical that innovation is critical for our region's path forward.
Thank you, Rachel. And first of all, I want to thank everyone who was involved on our team. It was very interesting to see the concepts evolve. But I think that all of us would agree that innovation and the relationship between institutions of higher learning are essential to a community's economic growth. And so I'm not at all surprised that the report encouraged us to take a deeper dive into that relationship, and even brought up leveraging the National Manufacturing Extension Partnership, MEP, which I admittedly we didn't know a lot about. So we appreciate the results and the output that the study did, and it certainly helped us to formulate and to center on our work. So, as I said, the long-term prosperity of any region really lies within the ability to innovate and enhance economic conditions of our community. And we decided that we really needed to, and we've always recognized this, develop an ecosystem which supported that. And so we recognize that that is vital to the sustainability of our economy and our community. And as a part of that, we need to drive more research activity into the region that is aligned with our industry needs. As you know, Rachel, HGI has utilized the university's resources a lot, but many businesses don't know about those capabilities, not only of the University of Louisville, but all of our institutions of higher learning locally and regionally. And so, we will be developing, GLI will be developing and using, further aligning and putting the businesses and the institutions directly in contact with each other, and helping the universities align themselves with the needs of the businesses, and offering the services of the universities to enhance the research. And so we think that that is something that has been done marginally, but can really put both the region and the institutions on a national footstep of recognition. And so part of what GLI will be doing will be to produce a higher ed capabilities report to the businesses, so that we would be aware of those capabilities. And I have, although Dr. Benaputi is not here, she has even indicated her willingness and openness to hire a position that will be kind of like the front door to our business community, and help navigate the various services and capabilities that the university has to offer.
Thank you so much.
That's
Yeah.
kind of.
Thank you so much, Alice. That was a great summary of kind of the actions that are planned. And I know Dr. Benabuti was sad not to be able to be with us, but she did commit to at least bringing those resources together, and she's been very invested in this process. And so I'm going to move into startups, and this is Sean. This is a question for you. Tell us about your strategic initiative, startups, and why you believe it's so important for our region, and maybe some of the tasks and actions that GLI will accomplish with this.
Sure. Thanks, Rachel. First of all, Lonnie hit on the 3 key points from the Techonomy report, right? We need to organize our services and really provide those services through formation and ideation all the way up through, growth and maturity. I've been in this kind of part of the ecosystem now for over 20 years in Louisville, and we've had a lot of great ideas and a lot of really well-intentioned, smart people involved in this process, but it really hasn't been organized in a way that I think has been or can be effective. So I think that part will be critical, and GLI is going to play a major role in that, because they work with companies at all stages, right? The second piece that I think is even more critical, and I would even argue the most critical for the startup region or startup ecosystem and companies, is this first customer idea. Getting medium and larger size companies involved with early stage businesses to test products, refine a service, prove a concept out. That's really critical. It provides really important feedback to founders and product managers to be able to iterate early and sometimes fail fast, which we don't do a very good job of historically here. And then also provides credibility for the third stage, which is then raising capital. A lot of companies, not every company that starts up has to raise capital or a significant amount of capital. But regardless, you need to be able to show that you've got some customers, you've got some adoption. It makes the capital raising process, and again, I've done that many times in my career, so much easier. So again, GLI, through both their Amplify program, that will be focused on kind of organizing the services along with LHCC, and then also being able to kind of look across and act as an advocacy group with medium and larger sized companies to help educate them, to help so that they understand their role in the importance of a vibrant startup community, right? We know that, now, especially with the pandemic, people can, for the most part, live anywhere. So opportunities that abound and great ways for us to, hopefully get people here to consider living here, we need to have the jobs available for them as well. So I'm very excited about it. It's nice to know that GLI's really put their foot forward to help the little guys, which are going to be the growth in this community. We are not going to find the next Humana by recruiting them to Louisville. We are going to find them down somewhere in Nulu or the South End or, the West End or the East End. So we need as many of those as possible because it's hard to become a Humana. So hopefully we're going to get on the right step.
So thank you, Sean. Just a follow-up question. We had several alignment team meetings around this, and I know what came up often, and you were very passionate about mentorship, especially with the startups. And one of the ways that we can attract and retain these startups is through mentoring. So why don't you explain a little bit about the types of mentoring our startups need?
Yeah, I mean, it really is it's a wide range of mentors, really. It can go from former founders all the way to service providers. There are so many little facets to starting a company, right? You've got to understand going to market strategy for your product. You may have technical needs if you have a technology that you're trying to take to market. Legal formations, employee issues. There's so many different elements to starting a company. And oftentimes the founder or the founder group has to wear all these different hats themselves. So having those capabilities very easily found and within, arm's length is really important to helping companies avoid missteps along the way that slow them down, that are much, much higher risk for a early stage company than it would be for a Papa John's, for instance, right? So I think that it's really a broad range, and also having people with subject matter expertise within the different departments of an early stage business. So I mentioned go-to-market strategy. Having people with strong product marketing experience is important and being available to as mentors to startups. Most of the time when we think of mentors, we think of founders, people who've done it before, that can somehow provide some insight into, the problems and opportunities, if you will, of an early stage business. But I really think those subject matter experts and broadening that range of potential mentors would be really helpful.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your insight.
Sure.
Okay, and this is for Teresa. Teresa is responsible for the cluster group. And Teresa, tell us a little bit about the cluster initiatives and why it's important for our region to make improvements now around clusters.
Yes, this initiative, and thank you, Rachel, for giving me the opportunity to speak to everyone. This initiative is meant to bring a focused, targeted, and differentiated approach to our industries in our region. We have strong industries, but we could make them stronger. We need to make them stronger to withstand competitive pressures. We also need to help develop a strong support for emerging industries that we have identified are needed and critical for our region to take us into the 21st century, specifically tech focused. So we've identified that what we have here we're in this very competitive environment when it comes to business development and economic development. And so we're not doing this as just the only city out there or region out there. We must be aware that there are others that are already there and doing the same thing. So in order to support our position on this, we need to support our industries by a clustered approach, a scaled clustered approach that identifies our strengths within those industries, but identifies the gaps and puts together networking opportunities and tries to attract yet additional companies that will fit within those industries. And so we actually have the benefit of existing networks that already have come before us and will still remain in place, that we will help improve and further support in the Advanced Manufacturing and Logistics Network, also our Health Enterprises Network, but we're also launching and creating a tech network that's chaired by Stacy Griggs of El Toro. So these are a focused approach to help support so that it puts us in a better position to be competitive in the current economy and the future economy.
Okay, thank you so much. So a follow-up question on clusters, and maybe Steve, you might want to talk about this, is why does bringing businesses together, ecosystems together, beneficial to create this shared network in our region? So from your perspective, why is that helpful, and why was that such an important action for this plan?
Well, I think by having these active councils in these various industries, you get some creative ideas and a lot of energy there. I think that hopefully they can become some of the basis of economic development efforts for our community, the basis for telling the world how good we are in these various industries. This collaboration through advanced manufacturing, logistics, food and beverage, and so forth, I think will pay big dividends. We've got a lot to offer in this community, and we've just got to package it, I think, a little more tightly, a little smarter, and I think this is a great way to do it through the networks that Teresa just talked about, and it needs a big push and some support, and I think it'll make a big difference.
Okay, thank you, Steve. I appreciate that. So, Conrad, you're oversighting and moving forward and helping us push forward the inclusivity efforts. So why don't you explain and tell us about that initiative a bit, why it's important for our region to make improvements now. That would be really helpful for us to hear.
Absolutely. And thank you, Rachel, for the opportunity, and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I think this has kind of been top of mind. And, we paid some external consultants to come in and basically compare us to the cities that we say are peer cities, ones that we kind of compare ourselves to. And, data, there's no emotion in it. It is what it is. And the data came back and said that Louisville was last in number of MBEs in our city. We're not proud of that, so on top of that, you have a movement that comes out of the death of, the George Floyd, the Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor. And, it all kind of culminated in what's the right thing to do? How are we going to move forward? Are we really interested in eliminating racism, promoting connectedness, diversity, and inclusion? I think a lot of corporate companies were on board early. I think some thought they were doing a lot more than they really were. And then you have others that, quite frankly, perhaps it just never touched them. They didn't cross circles or paths with people that look like me often enough. And they really didn't realize how, I don't know how else to say it, but how this racial wealth gap was widening in 2020. You know, it's widening. It's not getting any better. So GLI, you know, with this data, and they really put forth a commitment and said, okay, expanding inclusivity and working to overcome implicit and explicit bias will require some deep exploration, some self-reflection, and we got to realize how much it's impacted the city, and it's impacted the city a lot. You know, so you know, we've started a convening this business council to end racism for those discussion of trust building, education, and action. And this city has to remember that MBEs have been disfranchised for so long that a lot of us don't know who to trust. So, you know, GLI is taking this stance of trying to be the convener of that. And I'm really encouraged and excited about the hearts of many CEOs and other city leadership that are ready. You know, up till now, we've had quite a bit of discussion. We've been on these phone calls and we've been thrilled with all the participation, and we are ready for some action now. So I'm really looking forward to saying, okay, here's this framework that we would love for, you know, people to adopt, and start really being transparent about where we are and having a clean slate and saying, okay, where are we going to be a year from now? Where are we going to be 2 years from now? Where are we going to be 5 years from now? Because for us, for this city to survive, we have to make sure that inclusion is a big part of that.
Thank you so much, Conrad, for those heartfelt comments. And so I'm going to move on to Carrie. And Carrie was involved in the connectivity initiatives. And Carrie, tell us a little bit about your initiative around connectivity and why it was important for our region to make improvements now. Carrie, you're on mute, if you can unmute. Okay.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Perfect. Thanks, Rachel. I apologize for that. It's not like I haven't done this a few times like the rest of you. When I originally agreed to this, to co-chair this, I thought of it one way, but I've grown to think of it much differently. And Conrad actually articulated some points that I think really matter. When we talk about a regional connectivity, how we connect with one another, we also have to realize, how do we connect with each other across the street? We think of it a lot of times in how do we connect in 2 states, or how do we connect in 2 counties, or how do we connect with local government to state government? But maybe the foundation for where we need to go, or how we need to get there, is start by just talking to one another, that's by the individuals that are right beside you. So I think this component of the plan is much needed, and I think it can help make a difference. And Conrad, you said it really well. We got to start with admitting we got a problem and realize that we do have a problem. Then we can start to address the problem. I've been fortunate to be involved in several things in this community where we've tackled really big issues and worked together and got them done. I mean, we've built airports, we've built bridges, so we can do it. But we have to start by just having the conversation. So for me, it's been a little bit of a change in my thought process, but I think it's a healthy change. We need a lot of healing, and I think part of that will be by doing it together. And that means all of us locking arms, whether we're in Indiana or Kentucky, or whether we're in Bullitt County or Jefferson County. We need to figure this out. And I think we can do it. But I'm like a lot of you on this call, it's time to start making a difference. We've got to get out of our office, and I need to go to your office. And that, I think, is where part of the answer lies. Thanks, Rachel.
Thanks so much. I appreciate that. And so let's move over to talent. And Steve Kananen, Why don't you speak a little bit about how having a thriving community college system is vital to growing and retaining talent? Maybe tell us about the importance of our local community colleges, such as JCTC and Ivy Tech, and how their successes play a role in our talent development.
Rachel, thanks. I think that those community colleges are a critical part from the talent ecosystem perspective. And besides doing some really important things around accessibility and making education accessible broadly and making it affordable, they also do some really important things. The first is their ability to generate job-ready candidates. So right now, these folks are going to community colleges to get job career-oriented skills. And those skills are needed within by employers, and they're building them, whether that is building technologies, whether that is healthcare, they're able to go ahead and get that. The second thing is the community colleges are reaching out to some traditionally disenfranchised students that may be soured from an educational perspective, that may feel like that educational system from the post-secondary perspective is a little too impersonal or a little too big or not accessible enough for them. And they are doing that. They're also playing a critical role because the community colleges are an on-ramp, so to speak, to furthering skill development and furthering education. And there are partnerships between the community college systems and four-year institutions throughout the state that really make a difference to the students.
Okay, so to follow up with that, can you talk a little bit about the career acceleration networks, the CAN networks, maybe the importance for our community?
Sure. I think there are a couple of things that when we think about. First, let's talk about talent, because talent, when you look at talent, you have to look at talent as the thread that is woven throughout all of these initiatives. It's so great to hear other chairs speaking because the thing that binds all of these initiatives together is talent. And one of the things that we realize is that when we talk about talent, we used to talk in terms of attraction and retention. And, that's not enough anymore. We here in Louisville have to develop a sustainable pipeline. And that pipeline of talent has to be able to regenerate itself. Part of that is some things, there are a number of initiatives, but let's talk about the Career Acceleration Network for a second. There are about 40 employers that are participating in that. When I was an HR professional, one of the areas that always gave me a pause was, where do I go to find information? And that network is going to be able to be up, it's going to be able to be virtual, and employers are going to have a tool at their hand in order to solve some of their most pressing problems.
Great. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And so I'm going to go back to Conrad for a minute. Conrad, I'd love for you to speak a little bit about the accelerator, what your thoughts are.
Absolutely. And what she's referring to is Cincinnati has done a phenomenal job in their accelerator. And they themselves, not too long ago, had to heal as a city as well due to some racial unrest. And they've done a phenomenal job with their accelerator, and they've taken scalable MBEs and they figured out a way to scale them, and so that they're not just doing business with other people within Cincinnati, but they're able to provide this same service or these same products regionally and a lot of times nationally. So one of the elements of our strategic plan at GLA, and it's probably the more exciting one, is a creation of a minority business accelerator modeled after what the Cincinnati Chamber has done. We're trying to get, of course, at the end of the day, investment makes all of this stuff work. So we're trying to get a 5-year funding commitment for that right now. So with that, I encourage corporations seeking to show commitment to this work to step forward and help us make this a reality. In 5 to 10 years from now, this city needs to be talking about how they've lifted an MBE and were able to scale them from nothing or from $1 million or $5 million corporation into a $50-60 million corporation. The scalable MBE, when scalable MBEs win, so do the tier right below them. And when they win, the tier right below them win. So one transaction isn't going to do it. It's going to take business opportunities. It's going to take partnerships. And at the end of the day, it's going to take champions and it's going to take allies.
Very, very well said. Thank you, Conrad. I really appreciate your insight and especially your passion as you've really kind of jumped into this issue. So I think with that, again, I want to thank all of our, Sarah, can you move that? That's okay. All right, we're having a little technical issue, so that's okay. Give us just a second here. Again, I want to thank each of our alignment team chairs for your efforts. I know I personally have been involved in lots of pre-calls and work and alignment calls and preparation and all the additional hard work that you've put in this. So I greatly appreciate all of your time and especially your time this afternoon. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to Sarah.
Thank you, Rachel, and thank you for facilitating this entire process. It's been a pleasure to work with you. What I hope you've gotten out of today is the fact that we can't sit back and wait for prosperity for all. Prosperity is something that we create by implementing the strategies that we've talked about today. And the foundation on which all of this sits is investment of time and investment of treasure. It's a cycle that's proven effective for all of our peer cities. Investment leads to growth. Growth leads to prosperity. And reinvestment amplifies it all. We can do this. We will do this. We must do this. If a specific initiative has piqued your interest, I invite you to join our work. Whether it's our Career Acceleration Network, which will create strategic career pathways so that entry-level positions can move to higher wage positions through a commitment of training and education on behalf of employers, or whether it's our Minority Business Accelerator that Conrad talked about. Anything you've heard about today that you're interested in being involved with, please connect with us. We want you to be involved in this process. For more information on the overall strategic plan, please go to our website, greaterlouisville.com/nowlouisville. This work takes many hands, and I would be remiss if I did not recognize our important guiding committee who has helped us to get to this point. They've worked with us over the course of the past year on the plan. Again, we welcome all of you to get involved. Our time is now Louisville. Thank you again to our sponsors, LG&E, Action Coach of Louisville, and Mightily. I hope you all have a wonderful week.